Welcome to Talk Branding to Me, the podcast for women building intentional businesses and brands rooted in strategy, not just aesthetics.
Branding doesn't have to feel overwhelming. It's more than design. It's how strategy and style come together to create an identity, build trust, and stand out.
We're your hosts, Jamie Wright of Embellish Brands
and Jessie Ford of Untethered Design Studio.
We're brand strategists, designers, and friends who turned our coffee chats into honest conversations about branding done right
and wrong.
If you're feeling stuck or unsure about your brand, you're in the right place.
And now, let's talk branding. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Talk Branding to Me podcast. I am your co-host, Jessie, here with my other co-host, Jamie. And we have a really fun topic to dive into today. Branding boos and do's. And we mean boo as in B-O-O, something to avoid and stay away from, or that might not be good practice, and do's, something that you should probably try to do at some point in the branding process. So, Jamie, do you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Sure. We love a good case study. It's always interesting just to kind of watch and see what other brands and companies are doing out in the real world and maybe trying to learn from their experiences as well. Take what works or don't do what doesn't work for them. That was the inspiration for this segment of branding boos and do's. So how this works is each one of us is going to share one example of a corporate brand. One of them is an example of a boo. And I will just preface saying it's our personal opinion that it is a boo. You may disagree with us, but we just wanted to talk through an example to illustrate the point that we're wanting to make about it. And then the other person is going to share a brand do, an example of something done well in branding, in our opinions. They will have a theme between the two of them, and hopefully just doing a little micro case study in this way will help our listeners just think a little bit more about these real world branding examples and how they might be able to learn from them and incorporate those lessons into their own brands.
Let's dive in. My case study is the branding boo. So something that was not ideal that a major brand that everyone knows and a lot of people love tried to pull off. I believe it was this summer. I might have my timing off, but I think it was kind of like early summer. 2 words, Cracker Barrel. So you know what I'm going to talk about today. I'm done. We're moving on to you next. So I actually did look up some facts around this rebrand that they attempted, and a lot of our listeners are probably familiar, right? It was everywhere. It was impossible to miss the debacle between, them redoing the logo, removing the old-timer image from the logo that everyone knows Cracker Barrel by, all of that, and trying to modernize, I think, some other things. So it was not received well by pretty much everyone. I don't even think it was necessarily only the Cracker Barrel audience. I think even if you're not some fan or follower of Cracker Barrel, it was still just like, what are they doing? It was still received pretty negatively. I saw just endless posts on social media and even, things being discussed on mainstream news, on TV, on late night news. So long story short, they ended up attempting a $700 million rebrand. As a brand designer, my opinion is, why? If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Like everyone, I say this loosely, right? Like knows and loves Cracker Barrel. It's the place that you stop and eat at when you're on vacation or you're traveling on the road. There's one everywhere. You eat there on Sundays after church or meet family there, whatever it is. It's nostalgic, it's Americana, it's feel good, it's down home, it's cozy. And that's what makes it unique. That's what people love about it. That's what is familiar and comfortable to people, even if you've only been to a Cracker Barrel one time. So they attempted to design a pretty much text-only logo, so just a typographic logo, removing the imagery, the original icon, which was kind of the older gentleman in a rocking chair, the old timer, the symbol that's seen in the logo that's been there for years. They removed him. And then I think they just tried to kind of modernize the design in some other ways. They're bringing in more like whites into their color palette, kind of removing some of the texture of the brand, the warmth, the woody grains, that type of thing. I will take a step back here for a second and say that I remember a few years ago, it might have even been 4 or 5 years ago at this point, maybe longer, they were making updates to their menu. They were doing things differently just throughout the chain itself. I want to say they introduced like beer and cocktails into the menu, things like that, just things that they never offered before. So they were taking baby steps and kind of revamping some things throughout the brand anyway. But they really dropped the bomb with releasing and revealing rather this text-based logo with the old timer gone from it. They didn't like the old man missing from the logo, so it didn't feel like Cracker Barrel anymore. And the point is, it was, again, not well received, and they received a lot of backlash for it. So that being said, it is our branding boo today because it very much goes back to kind of the old school principle of leave it alone if it's working. If it's not broke, don't fix it. That type of concept, right? I think as very forward thinking brand designers and strategists, you and I would probably both say that we understand the intention behind modernizing a brand and wanting to continue to grow and evolve it, carry it into the future, have Cracker Barrel continue to be something that's around for many more years. I get the intent behind maybe why they did it and just trying to modernize some things. And it's not that it was a bad intention, but they just went way too far with it, right? I mean, I think there are other ways you can sort of spruce up aspects of a brand without completely like peeling away and just removing the heart and soul of it. And even something as simple as the old timer in the logo, removing him just removed the spirit of the brand itself. And again, what people connect to and what they love about it. So that's our branding boo for today is Cracker Barrel trying to make a good attempt at modernizing kind of a legacy brand, but just taking it a little too far. They definitely were not putting the consumer first when considering this rebrand.
I agree. Well, then, to piggyback on that example, I have the pleasure of presenting today's branding do. So this is an example of working with your customer base instead of maybe arbitrarily making some decisions. Potentially, we don't really know kind of what happened behind the scenes necessarily at Cracker Barrel, but it was something that their audience, and even those not truly in their audience, but people everywhere, just it did not land well and it did not resonate. So the branding do for today is the Savannah Bananas. For those of you who are not familiar with what are even these bananas from Savannah, it is the name of a baseball team, or actually a banana ball team. That's what they call it. So it's basically, in my layman's terms, it's essentially baseball with a twist and high entertainment value. They do what they call, tricks and just different things. They basically reimagined the sport of baseball and wanted to infuse it with more entertainment value. They have taken the sports world by storm, so you may be familiar with Savannah Bananas at this point. And their owner is Jesse Cole, and he's the gentleman that you might see in a yellow tux, a yellow top hat, and yellow tennis shoes as that branded representative of the Savannah Bananas. So here is their due. They, as a brand, prioritize fans first, and that is an experience that they consistently want to provide. And as the brand has grown, as excitement about this banana ball game has grown over time, they have millions and millions of people who want to come to their games. And so they basically, they don't necessarily stay in one place. They travel all over the country. So they go to Major League Baseball and football stadiums, and they play their banana ball baseball games inside those venues. And so if you imagine the size of these stadiums, it's oftentimes, up to 50, 60, 70,000, maybe even in some cases 100,000 seats that are available, because everybody does want a piece of the Savannah Bananas, or at least of the brand. They sell their tickets to their games on a lottery system, and fans need to sign up in advance for a location. They publish in advance where their games will be played in a season, and then you sign up for a lottery based on the location you would like to go see the game at. Obviously, there's a limited number of tickets available. And so essentially, here's what happened, and then here's how they recovered from it. They had intended to send an email to about 4,000 people regarding a game at a specific location. It was announcing the lottery and the people who were selected, essentially, I think, to get those tickets that were available. Instead, that email went out to over 40,000 people, so 10 times as many. Again, they got all the details like, hey, you're a shoo-in, go get your tickets. They did like an increment timeline of when people were able to log in, obviously, to help their systems support all of that activity. Well, obviously, what happened, there was not enough tickets. And so that was a massive failure. They angered over 40,000 people because the majority of them were not able to get tickets like they were allegedly promised. Once they realized the error, they figured out a plan, and essentially, according to Jesse Cole, he said, we had to figure out how to continue putting the fans first. They sent out an email to every single one who got accidentally that first email, and they offered them 5 tickets to any Savannah Bananas game location that season. So that's over 100,000 tickets. And of course, people opted in for that. What they started noticing, though, is because these tickets were free, people weren't actually showing up because they hadn't paid for the tickets. So there's, if you give somebody something for free and it may not be as valuable to them as if they had paid for it. So they were finding that the people who had these free tickets were showing up less than those who had paid for their tickets. What they decided to do, because their tickets are in demand, people are willing to pay a premium to come to these games. So they decided to offer those who had these free tickets a buyback option. They were literally going to pay these people who they gave free tickets to. They were going to give them money to give up those tickets if they were planning to not attend. That was a lot of money as well. Not only were they given the free tickets, they were also then paying some of those people to get those free tickets back so they could sell them to their fans who really wanted to show up. Ultimately, that was a $6 million plus loss for them.
Wow.
He justified, Jesse Cole, as he shares this story, he justified every single dollar by maintaining their core brand value of fans first. And so as he's sharing this story, he asked these questions, which I think we all need to consider, is, do you stand by your values? How often do you actually live them out? It's one thing to just say our brand values are X, Y, and Z, but how often do you actually back up those words with action, especially when it hits your bottom line really, really hard? So Jesse, you shared that Cracker Barrel spent $700 million on a rebrand, and they wound up walking it back. And here, Savannah Bananas, it was only $6 million, but they willingly spent the money. They devised the plan to eat the cost of that money in order to ensure that they were living out their brand values of putting fans first. That is why the Savannah Bananas are our brand do example for today.
I love that. And I forgot to mention, too, along with the $700 million spent on the rebrand for Cracker Barrel, their stock obviously plummeted as well. So just a lot of, unfortunate negative repercussions of that decision, just for them to literally give in and switch back to the original logo. And then people were, I'm sure, happy that it went back. But then there was a lot of attention just around, well, look what they ended up doing. They just ended up switching it back, right? It was that inconsistent, like, okay, well, they went ahead and just gave in to us. There was almost still like a negative connotation just around how they managed and handled the entire thing, which is super interesting. But yeah, there's clearly a lot of lessons, I think, to be taken away from the boo and the do today. But it ultimately comes down to just, in the Savannah Bananas case, fans first, right? Cracker Barrel's case, customers first, your audience, your followers, your bread and butter, the people who are investing in you and following you and spending money with you. There has to be a balance there and sometimes a line drawn. But at the end of the day, I think it does lean towards putting them first and what they want and making sure that they are still connecting with and loving and enjoying and consuming the brand that you've put out there, that you've grown, that you've built, that stands on a foundation that has values that really resonate with people. And don't try too hard and ultimately take it too far and create a brand that is not familiar and not relatable. But yeah, definite takeaways there from both brands.
I think one final takeaway that I'll add is Savannah Bananas specifically considers their fans in their decision making. Whereas in the Cracker Barrel case, I would say perhaps they didn't necessarily put their customers first. They ultimately did, which I do think is a good thing, but initially I'm not sure that they did. And so then they chose to walk back this major change because of the feedback that they got after the work was already done and the money was already spent. But the Savannah Bananas, just again, I'm a fan of this brand, so I follow them, and I'm I like to think I'm pretty well versed in just what they offer. But as far as my experience has been and my observation is every decision they make is, how will this impact our fans? Do we do it? Do we not? Based on that information. And then they go from there. So they are very intentional about ensuring their customers and the customer experience at every step of the point as they are making their plans, not just after the fact when the feedback doesn't go as well as, maybe they had hoped it would. With that, Jessie, we're going to transition to the last part of this episode, which is our Talk Branding to Me segment. So Jessie, talk branding to me.
Today, I just want to kind of quickly touch on the importance of feedback, getting feedback from your clients, your consumers, your customers, your audience. So timely here for this conversation, right? Makes sense
Yes.
to chat through, but just kind of keeping in mind, no matter what your brand is, always know your target audience, know who they are, what they stand for, what they like, what they don't like. And before you make any kind of major move, like nothing wrong with a brand refresh, nothing wrong with a rebrand. And there is a time and place for all of that, especially when building a business brand. But if you have a specific audience, and take Cracker Barrel, take Savannah Bananas, they are brands who provide an in-person experience to their followers. You sit in a Cracker Barrel restaurant to eat. You are served the food. It is an experience you have. And it's not just eating, it's coming in, going through the general store, and playing the games at the table and the things that they've always offered that they have been trying to kind of change up these last couple of years. Savannah Bananas being literal entertainment, people buying tickets and going to the games. Whether you're serving people in person or you're like us, where you're a virtual remote service-based business and you might communicate over Zoom and emails and not necessarily be in person with people, it's still important, no matter what type of business you have, to keep in mind who the target audience is and that you're always checking in with them, serving them well, getting feedback from them. What do you think works, doesn't work? I think something you're really good at doing is sending out surveys to your email subscribers. I need to you inspire me to do that more often, polling people, getting thoughts and feedback, because it gives us a chance to get out of our own heads and our own ways, where we always think we're right and we know it's right for our business. And a lot of times we probably do, but it's important to get a pulse on what is everyone else who's actually investing in this, actually buying, actually following, actually interested in me and what I'm offering. What do they want? What do they need more of? What am I not offering enough of? So I think that's my soapbox for today is take the examples of what these brands did and didn't do. And just always make sure that you're sort of checking in with who you're actually serving, delivering services to, creating products for, because at the end of the day, it is about, what they want and need. And again, what solution you provide to them, no matter what type of business you have. Keep that target audience in mind and try to keep them happy. Don't do anything too drastic without maybe getting some thoughts and feedback from them first.
I absolutely agree with everything you said. And I think that's a wonderful perspective to end this episode on, because ultimately our brands, our businesses are only as successful as people are willing to pay us to do what we
Yes.
do or for the thing that we provide. If we are not resonating with our audience, they are not going to want to pay for what we have to offer. Then the effect of that is our business might fail.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely taking the lessons from the boo and the do today,
Mm-hmm.
and also just keeping in mind that I love what you said. It's doing a pulse check with your audience, just checking in and see what's resonating with them and what isn't working, and making adjustments based on what
Mm-hmm.
you learn from there. That was
Exactly.
a great point, Jessie. And I think with that, we'll wrap up today's episode. So thank you to our listeners for joining us for this episode of Talk Branding to Me.
Thanks for listening to Talk Branding to Me. If today's conversation sparked a new way of thinking about your brand, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow business owner who's ready to think deeper about branding and have fun with it too.
For more branding insights, behind-the-scenes conversations, and resources to support your brand journey, connect with us at Embellish Brands and at Untethered Design on social media.
Don't forget, branding is more than just aesthetics. It's both strategy and style.
Until next time, remember, you're fully capable of building a brand you're proud of, and we're here cheering you on every step of the way.